Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. I'm Megan.
And I'm Sierra. We are back with our second booktube video. So we had a lot of positive feedback from the first one. I know they don't get a ton of views, but other people that do watch them, you guys were really active in the comments, so that was good to see. And also we're going to explain we're playing on a Wednesday right now, which is not something we usually do. And this is kind of how we're planning on doing a sort of vlogmas this year. So we tried doing a modified vlogmas last year where we did week in our lives, and then
once
after
we were done
finals
with finals we did every day, and it was still just too much. And usually we get burnt out when we are posting vlogs every day, because once we're done with finals we go into this hermit shell of just not wanting to do anything, and therefore the vlogs are boring, they're not fun to edit, we don't like uploading them.
So we're going to try and combat that this year by posting twice a week, so once on Wednesdays, and those are going to be more sit-down videos with the exception of one exciting vlog. And then the other videos are going to be posted over the weekend. Will be a week in our life of the previous week. So I think that should be more manageable and hopefully not have us burnt out. It's also it might not be labeled as vlogmas specifically, because for some reason now I feel we do vlogmas and they get less views. So we're still going to stick with the normal content as usual, but it is our vlogmas this year, I guess. So just wanted to preface with that, and now into what this video is.
So, in total, Sierra and I we haven't read all the same books, we've read a lot of the same books, but we've read 14 total different romance novels where that's the main part of the book. And so we thought it'd be fun for our next book video to do ranking all of those different romance novels in order from, we'll probably start with our least favorite and then work our way up to most favorite. All of these honestly are good books, so any of the ones you mentioned, I think that anyone
the
can
lowest
pick up
one is a
and
3-star. So, yeah, and there's only I think one of those, right? Depending on, I've only read one 3-star. I don't know what
I don't have all of my rankings perfectly memorized.
But yeah, it should be a fun time, and we're gonna have a master list of the books that Megan and I have both read, and then also have popping in the books that I've read, and Megan will pop hers in where she thinks they fit. So let's start with the worst book.
Alright, starting off on the very bottom, we are going to have it be Without Merit, which is by Colleen Hoover. And honestly, we love Colleen Hoover's books. This just was a little bit different of a storyline than what her books usually are.
Yeah.
So
it was a mix of there was technically romance, but there was also family dynamic drama, which to me was not that interesting. And I felt honestly she came up with a title and then was how can I get this title to work? Because by the time it got to the point of the book where you understood the title, I was that's kind of cringy. The character's name is Merit, and it's she's a twin. Her sister's name is something else that's the same thing. Honor or something? I don't know.
Yeah. And it's just this dysfunctional family that doesn't get along super well, and they're just kind of a weird bunch, and yeah.
It was I read it and I was that's a 3-star. It was just eh. And the romance did not save it. It was kind of okay.
It's just an honestly side story.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the first one that I have where it's just me that has read it, and I'm putting it in second to last place because.
Would you give it 3 or 4 stars?
I would give it, I don't know, it's on the verge. It's hard because I read this over the summer and it was an audiobook, so it's hard for me to fully remember how I felt, but I'd probably put it at 3, but it's on the verge of 4. And it's All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. First of all, again, I listened to the audiobook of this. I hate the cover of this book. I probably would have never picked it up in stores.
I keep seeing it at Barnes & Noble, and I'm I want another Colleen Hoover book to read, but I cannot. I will not buy that book. It's so ugly.
So basically what this book is about is each chapter goes back and forth between the past and the present from the same couple. And so the couple is Quinn and Graham. And I really liked the book from the previous chapters, when it flashed back to the past, that was them falling in love, and I enjoyed reading that part of it. But then their current relationship was pretty rocky and not doing well. And as the reader you knew why, but it wasn't fully explained. They just weren't communicating very well at all. And in a way that's something that bothers me about books is if the only issue in the book that's keeping people from being happy is lack of communication. I struggle with that because I just think it's because then the only resolution at the end of the book is communication, and I'm just we could have done that sooner. So that was something that I just didn't really appreciate about this book, but it does, I think, in a good way, talk about how obviously the beginning of a relationship is usually the honeymoon phase, the happy, no one can see anything going wrong, and then it does address how relationships down the road are once you're married or trying to develop, start a family, then things can get harder. So I think that was good, and I think that's why a lot of people do like the book. I just felt storyline-wise, there wasn't a lot to the plot, so that is why it's on my lower end.
Alright, so we're already on to our 4 stars because that one was just one of probably like the worst books I read this year. And like honestly, it was still like a decent book. But yeah, on to the 4 stars. This one is one that I have just read. I also included it in like the top 5 books I read of 2021, which I don't know if it'd still be in there because I read a lot more books and I've been reading some good ones, but I still really enjoyed this one. It is a queer love story, and as the title implies, they both die at the end. That's not really like a surprise or anything. So it just kind of like goes through the adventure of like how they meet, because they originally didn't know each other before like their quote unquote end day, and like you get to see how they like interact and spend time together, and it like didn't start off as like anything romantic. They were just friends, and then you get to see like that transition. So I really enjoyed it, and also like was very sad at the end.
Okay, the next books we both have read, and I feel like it's going to be
We're gonna
probably
put some heat.
controversial because a lot of people have this rated very highly. Like some people like this is their favorite Colleen Hoover book. It Ends With Us was just not, it's not a bad book.
It's
like again,
4
it's
stars,
not bad.
you know.
But it was just like a lot of people go crazy over this book and like think it's so sad, blah, blah. I feel like the best way to describe it is you have this couple who falls in love like pretty young, and it like talks about different like abusive relationships and stuff like that, and how like she grew up and her parents kind of had an abusive relationship, and she was like, I'm never going to experience that. That's not for me. Like I would never enter into a relationship like that. But then she kind of does, and then it kind of like circles back to she's also trying to open up like a flower shop, and that's part of the storyline. And then like someone from her past enters like her life again,
Yeah.
and it's just kind of like her trying to decide which relationship makes the most sense for her. It was just hard because I feel like a lot of people went crazy over like the relationships that were featured in the story, and I didn't feel super
I feel like
connected
the
to
one
them.
from her childhood was not like fully fleshed out, where I was like completely like rooting for them or anything. Like it was just that like her talking about her past and this guy that she had a relationship with, and like he's back in her life, but like learning about their past did not make me be like, oh my god, get back together with him. It was just and I don't know. I was just like, it was a good book. Obviously, like I read it, I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, but I was like, this is your guys' favorite.
I know. I've read much better Colleen Hoover books than this one.
All right, so the next book is People We Meet on Vacation. Again, we're still in the 4-star category, so
I haven't read this
one. I have independently read, and I really liked it. I really liked the storyline. I just felt like it was kind of slow, and like obviously that's probably like the intention of the author. Like by the time they get together, it is well into the book, but I did really enjoy it. The premise is kind of like you have 2 friends, they met in college, and it kind of does like sort of like a flashback of like every other chapter is like either in the present when like she's trying to go on vacation with her guy friend again, or it flashes back to a previous year of like they've gone on like a summer vacation for like the past 10 years. It flashes back to like 10 years ago on vacation, 9 years ago, 8 years ago, and like intermixed with that is like the present day. And you know, like something happened between them on one of those vacations where like they had like not spoken for 2 years, but like now she's like roped him back into going on another vacation, and it kind of just like walks through that. So really enjoyed the storyline. It just like took a long time for like the romance to actually happen. I was like, when is it gonna happen? I feel like the end was like kind of a letdown. Like it was okay, obviously like it was a happy ending, but I was kind of like, I feel like we could have done more, but I still really enjoyed it. All right, next book is also just one that I have read. It is The Song of Achilles, and I gave this one 4 stars. I feel like a lot of people are gonna like come at me because everyone who like has read this book loves it. It's like their favorite book ever. Again, this is like another queer romance if you're into that, and it kind of follows the story of like Achilles and then a character named Patroclus, I think is how you pronounce his name. That was like the issue I had with like reading this book and then trying to pronounce the Greek names. And it kind of like runs through like their childhood when they first meet, and like all the way through like them going to the Trojan War, and you get to see them grow up in age. I just feel like one thing that didn't work for me for this book was like it's written in 3rd person, and so I feel like it's harder to connect with characters when it's written in 3rd person. So in that sense, like you feel like you're just observing their relationship, but you're not like in it. And yeah, it has a very sad ending. A lot of people like say they cry at the end. I feel like books cannot make me cry because I like read it and I'm like, oh, sad. But it is a sad ending. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was very slow to start. It was like the first 50 to like 70 pages. I was like, this is like not good. It does pick up, and I did enjoy it. So I liked it.
Okay, now we're back to another book that just I have read, and it is not one that I have in person because again, it was an audiobook that I listened to. So any of these audiobooks could honestly, I listened to them all during the summer, and I don't fully remember my initial thoughts to them, so any of them could probably be like interchanged for places, and I can't compare them to the ones that Sierra has read that I have not read. Okay, so this is Regretting You by Colleen Hoover, and I had this kind of on my lower end. So Regretting You follows a mom and a daughter, and it's different POVs where each chapter is like one is a POV from the mom and then one's a POV from the daughter. And basically in the book, I don't want to like spoil stuff. Something happens that's like pretty big, and then as a result of that happening, there's like this family secret that gets like unlocked, and so it's like the mom and daughter are now like not talking to each other, not in a good mood. They're also both developing like their own separate relationship at the same time. It was good. I thought it was nice. It just like didn't stick out to me a whole lot when we were ranking the books. So that's why it's there. Okay, and then we have Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating. This is by Christina Lauren, which I just found out when I was watching a YouTube video to remind me what the story was about. That's a pen name for two best friends that write together.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
That's what I was told by the people in the video. But basically the premise of this book is the main character, her name is Hazel, and she's kind of described as being like a quirky girl. I feel like so many books describe girls as just being like super quirky, like no one understands them. And I kind of hate that. Like when I was reading this book and that was the only way they were describing her, I was like, we get it.
We get it, she's not like other girls.
But she's a teacher, she gets a new job, and so then she meets, I'm hopefully remembering this right, I think this is what happened. But then she like makes friends with one of the teachers, gets invited to like their cookout thing, and then she ends up meeting or finding out that the new friend, her brother, was someone that she like had met in college, but they didn't really know each other back then. And so they come up with like this idea of like going on double dates where they each set each other up with someone else, and then they all four go on dates, and they keep doing that over and over because like they do not have any successful dates. And then it's just kind of like them realizing like, oh, like maybe we keep enjoying the double dates because like we're going on them together. So that's pretty much the story. The ending was kind of rushed, I feel like, so that was another thing that I didn't love, but it was a happy ending overall. So okay, this was my last one that I read just on my own, and it was Maybe Someday, again by Colleen Hoover, and I had it here because I did enjoy this story. It was one of like the most memorable ones from the summer, so that's why it's ranked the highest. So the main characters are Sydney and Ridge, and they live in the same apartment complex, and Ridge is like always playing guitar, and Sydney's like on her balcony, and she'll always like listen to him playing guitar. She ends up finding out that he's deaf, actually, and so he finds out that she can write lyrics, and he's like having writer's block and can't figure out what lyrics to write with the songs. And his brother's in a band, so he like helps them out with songwriting. He's not coming up with any songs, so they kind of like decide to team up and do that together. And so they start getting like a little flirtatious. Then she finds out that Ridge has a girlfriend, and so they kind of like, you're rooting for Sydney and Ridge kind of, but you're also like, Ridge, you have a girlfriend. And for some reason, like, no matter what, even though he clearly has feelings for her, he's like, I can't break up with her, and you don't know why until later in the book. And so I'll leave it at that, but it was a good book. I enjoyed it.
So up next we have Confess. This was the first Colleen Hoover book that I read. This is the last book of the 4-star categories, but it's pretty close to 5 stars. Like, if someone wanted to give it 5 stars, big, okay. But basically it follows Auburn and Owen, and Auburn has just moved into this new area, and she's looking for a job, and then she like knocks on like a door of a place that says like help wanted, like ASAP. And then Owen opens the door, and he's like, oh my god, because he recognizes her. So at first you're like, okay, Owen knows her, but like she doesn't recognize him. So at first I was like honestly like weirded out, because I was like, this is like weird that he's like obsessed with her, and like how does he know her? Owen is an artist, and so he needed help with like setting up his art gallery. He like opens up, I think like once a week or something, to like have people come in and like look at his displays. And like the big thing for his art that he's doing right now is he's having people like leave confessions like at his doorstep, and he like takes the confessions and like paints paintings like about those confessions, and then people come and like look at them and buy them. And so that's like how they get to know each other. They start talking, a little romance starts to build, and then you also have like this other side story that I don't want to get like too into.
I know, but basically it all like really comes together and like wraps up in a nice little bow at the end.
Yeah, it really does. Like it's such a good ending, and it like switches POVs, so it goes like from Auburn to Owen, so you get like both of their
which I really
POVs.
like when books do that.
And yeah, I just really enjoy this. I think it's a good first Colleen Hoover read.
Okay, at this point, all the rest of the books are 5 stars, so you really can't go wrong
They're all great.
with any of them. So starting off, we've got The Hating Game. This was one of our more recent reads. We just read it over Thanksgiving break. By a new author, so Sally Thorne. This was the first book that we read of hers, but I have heard, like, I already had like other books of hers on my like TBR. Yeah, I was like, what's that list called? But basically the premise of this book is, I don't remember the characters' names.
I literally, the first thing I lose after I read a book is their names.
Lucy and Joshua, they both work together at like a book publishing company, but they have different bosses, so in a way they're kind of like nemesises because
Nemesi.
it was like two book companies had to come together to merge so they wouldn't have to shut down.
And so
it's
each
like
from the
two different companies. And so they're always like competing with each other, and then they find out there's a new job that's opening up that would be like whoever got the job would be in charge of the other person. So they both want to get the job. And there's of course a little romance that bundles up out of all of that, and it was kind of like,
I feel like honestly, like for it being a enemies to lovers book, that like enemies part does not last that long, which I like. Clearly, I've already complained about like the slow burn side of things.
It doesn't last that long, and you kind of come to find out that it wasn't really like they weren't really enemies after all, because they both were interested in each other from the start. But the journey is more so what makes this book interesting, I think. And yeah.
All right, the next Colleen Hoover book that we have is November 9th, and I don't remember the characters in this one either. Fallon and Ben. So this one again is a split POV, so it switches back and forth between Fallon's point of view and Ben's point of view, and it starts off with Fallon. I think she's like at a diner with her dad, and they're having an argument, and she's talking about like, okay, I'm like moving to New York or whatever. Like this is our last time we're gonna get to hang out before I move. Like kind of, their like relationship has been pretty rocky since they were both in a fire. Or I guess her dad wasn't really in the fire because he like left the house, but her dad's house was on fire and she was in the house and her dad didn't know that she was there, and so she has like some residual burns and stuff. So like ever since that happened, the relationship has been rocky. And then all of a sudden Ben swoops up, he's at the diner, he slides into the booth and he's like, hey girl, like what's up, like acting like she's his girlfriend, and the dad's like really confused, and so
she goes along with it.
They just fake it and pretend she wants to spite her dad.
Yeah.
So they pretend like they're dating, and then all of a sudden her dad leaves, and then they're talking, kind of like getting along, and she's like, they like decide to spend the rest of the day together, but like she says, hey, I'm like moving to New York, or I just said that weird. She's like, hey, I'm moving to New York, so like nothing can like happen. But then they have such a great time that first day. They're like, okay, crazy idea. What if next year on November 9th we meet up again, but we like don't communicate at all between like for the rest of the year. We just like set a spot
because she's going to New York, and she's like, I really want to move to New York to like work on, I don't remember what she's working on. Acting. And so she's like, no distractions
herself.
Whatsoever. So that's why she has like that rule.
Yeah.
And he's trying to like write a book, so she's like, you can't have distractions either.
Well, that was also like his thing was like, hey, I'm writing a book, like this can be the plot of the book, like so you can help me like with this creative process, and like we'll just meet once a year. And so that's how it goes. Like every year they meet up, they set a specific location, and then they like set a time, and they like decide to meet there. No communication otherwise. And for the most part, like it's off to a pretty good start in the beginning, and then like
the book's just about the journey. I honestly don't want to give much away because like every time they meet, like that's the point of the book.
Yeah.
But you just see like how this interesting thing that they decided to do ends up like causing problems, and then like they find solutions, and it's just like back and forth, and you're like, oh my god, you guys are dumb.
How, like the span of this entire book is like they only meet in person for like 5 or 6 days or something, and it's like, how does that much happen? And you just root for them the entire time.
All right, our second favorite book for the romance category is Beach Read. I also just recently read this, and I think it was pretty recent for you too. So this is by Emily Henry, and the premise of the book is that, what are their characters' names? Augustus and January. Sometimes I'm like, why do people come up with the names they do? But anyways, so they're both authors, and January moves into a new town, is trying to like get a book written because she hasn't written a book in a while, and her publisher's like waiting for a book. And then Augustus is also an author, and he's trying to also work on writing a book, and so they end up meeting. They actually know each other from the past. They were
college rivals, but like they
but
were really rivals.
Yeah.
And like so she actually thought that like he didn't know who she was, and she like was always comparing herself to him, and like she remembered in college she would always be like when they'd like pass their writing around, he would like critique hers extra hard or something, so she like didn't like him for that reason.
But they end up getting to know each other a little bit more because they are actually neighbors in the new town that they live in. And so they end up making this bet. I think it's January that ends up making the bet, but she's like, how about we both have to, because he kind of makes fun of, I feel like this is actually January just like projecting that he's making fun of her like perfect little world because she likes to write romance.
She writes romance and he writes literary fiction. So she like picks up on like a vibe that he's like making fun of her writing, and she's like, well, if you think it's so easy, like you do it.
And so they come up with this bet of he's going to try and write a romance novel, and she's going to try and write literary fiction. And so in order to help each other out with that, they end up having to see each other like twice a week, once to go on like this fake date so she can help inspire him to write his book, and then he takes her on these little outings to help like do research and stuff for the literary fiction books. And a relationship blossoms
ensues.
out of that.
Yeah. So I like this one because I felt like it was like the cutest book that we read in terms of like, it felt like they actually like got to like,
There wasn't like a bunch of like having to overcome enemies situations.
I feel like it seemed realistic in that sense. And I also just feel like the side stories that were there, I still thought were interesting. And like when it talked about the books that they were writing, I was like, oh, like that's kind of like a cool idea like for a book. I was like, I'm not reading those books, but I still thought like it added something to the plot. And I also just like thought that whenever there was like a situation that came up, like it was a valid like conflict within the relationship of like, it talks about some of Augustus's past and how that's like affecting how he like sees any like future with January. And so I feel like those were conflicts that made sense, but like they were resolved in a way that made sense. And I just thought it was a cute book. All right, and the book that gets the #1 spot, coincidentally also Megan's top book of the year, and it remains
And it
so.
became Sierra's, I don't know if it's your top book of the year,
Yeah,
but
definitely top romance, obviously. This is by Colleen Hoover, and I won't give too much away because like we were kind of talking about it in the other video, but Tate and Miles, fall in love. It starts off as like just like them sleeping together, honestly, because like that's all either of them think they're looking for, specifically like Miles, like that's all he wants to start, and Tate is like interested in him, but she's like, okay, like whatever, I'm busy.
like I'm in
nursing
nursing school, so I'm busy
or not like nursing
too.
school, but like she's in some other program that's like ahead of nursing, but like she's like, I'm busy, like I just moved here, I don't need anything. And then quickly she realizes that she does in fact like him, but she keeps trying to pursue a relationship with him, and he keeps being like, no, that can't happen. And you do get like, it's kind of split POV in the sense that Tate is like the current point of view, and then Miles, you get like flashbacks of like his past point of view, so you like get to see some interesting things that happened in his past, and eventually that will like reveal why he felt like he couldn't pursue a relationship with Tate. And then at the end, it all comes together in a nice little bow.
As it always does.
And also, if you read this one before November 9th, Tate and Miles appear in November 9th. So I read that in the reverse order, so I didn't even know who Tate and Miles were in this book, but little shout out to the, I don't know,
the Colleen Hoover universe.
yeah. So that is it. Those are all the romance books that we've read, and that is what we have them ranked out as. If you guys have read any of these books and you like want to put your own ranking in the description, or if you want to like fight us on how
Or
we
if
rank
you
them.
like most of these books, or if you've read them and you like them, and if you have books that you think that we would like, we will absolutely be taking.
I know,
any more
I need some new romance
recommendations.
books because I feel like there's a fine line between like cute, like love it, and like cringe, and I do not want to get into the cringe category, so give me some good romance recommendations. Alright, so that's going to be it for today's video. If you liked it, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and also don't forget to come back to our channel on anytime Friday through Sunday.
And we'll see you in our next video.
Bye.
Bye.